Welcome. You're watching this introductory video clip because you've chosen to take part in a short e-learning course unit about consolation. In this clip, I shall explain a little about the purpose of this course unit and about its content. To begin with, what is consolation? Why is it an interesting and important topic for you to study? In short, why should you put effort into this course? The unit on consolation is part of a larger course called Death, a Cultural History. The course unit is what we, the lecturers on this larger course, call a vignette. What does that mean? Well, you are already familiar with the history of death. The vignettes are like little thematic windows onto the historical material. Vignettes offer a fresh way of looking at the sources. They suggest new ways of analyzing the material. In this vignette, our little window onto our sources is consolation. Why is this important and innovative? Please bear with me. Take a closer look at this painting while I tell you something about it. It is called La Gloria. Its subtitle is A Spanish Wake. It was painted in 1864 by the Scottish artist John Philip. When I first saw it in the Scottish National Gallery in Edinburgh, I was struck by it because to me it seemed to illustrate the essence of consolation. Apparently, I'm not the only one to like the painting. When it was acquired for the Scottish National Gallery in 1897, it was the most expensive piece of art that the museum had ever bought. John Philip was one of the artists who visited Spain in the 19th century to be inspired by the color and vividness of the scenes of life to be found there. In La Gloria, the artist depicts a Spanish wake or vigil for a dead child. You see the child on the left side of the painting, laid out in a white robe on a bed in a candlelit room. The painting is divided into two parts, the dimly lit interior on the left and the brightly lit festive scene outside. You might think it is odd that the people outside are celebrating. Haven't they heard that someone has died? As the catalogue tells us, the story is quite different. The people are celebrating because they believe that the soul of a child that has died so young is without sin and that it will go directly to heaven. The dark area on the left is the painting's center of gravity. Here is the mother who cannot let go of her child. She cannot join in the celebrations. Her right hand holds the curtain to the room in which her dead child is lying. Close to her, there are two figures. A kneeling woman tenderly embraces the bereaved mother and holds her wrist. A man stands behind her with a caressing hand on her head. His left arm, partly in daylight, gestures at the celebration outside. He seems to argue with the bereaved mother and to invite her to take part in the celebrations. This painting captures consolation brilliantly. The loss separates the bereaved mother from others who are not directly affected. Long-held convictions can prove meaningless in the face of loss. People who attempt to console must try to build a bridge to the bereaved. They try to reduce the suffering and try to bring the bereaved to see things in a different light. Consolation is no easy thing. We must tread very carefully and respect the sensibilities of the bereaved. At the same time, consolation will also affect the consolers, who will be reminded of their own earlier losses. They will feel exasperated by their powerlessness in the face of suffering. It is small wonder, perhaps, that we tend to avoid the word consolation nowadays. We speak disparagingly of consolation prizes, and that's about it. We prefer to speak of coping or resilience, and so to suggest that in normal circumstances the bereaved are able to deal with their losses. All the same, however much we prefer not to use the word consolation, it remains an important aspect of our dealings with death. Our uneasiness has led scholars to neglect this important aspect of our cultural repertoire. And that is the reason for this vignette. Consolation is an important but neglected lens for looking closely at our culture. If you understand consolation, you will better understand the rich array of material and immaterial culture, from cemeteries to online memorials and funeral rites. In this vignette, we introduce you to a conceptual framework of consolation that we have developed in Groningen. This framework allows you to appreciate the ways that ideas and practices relating to consolation have changed over time. It also allows you to identify the themes that have remained important. So, the framework incorporates themes of continuity and change. In order to get the balance right, we need to question our own preconceptions. And we need to understand how they relate to much older ideas about consolation. We shall do this in 2 stages. First, you will conduct and evaluate a short interview with an acquaintance, asking them what do they think about consolation. And next, we shall contrast the contemporary point of view with an historically very remote one. We shall read a letter of consolation written 2,000 years ago by a philosopher to his wife on the death of their 2-year-old daughter. Then we read a text that introduces the 4-axis model, a conceptual framework of consolation. Finally, we shall apply the conceptual framework to specific phenomena. To this end, you will conduct a small assignment on a cemetery of your choice. Based on your hands-on experience, we shall think further about ways in which the conceptual framework might be improved. All in all, it should take you no more than 20 hours to complete this vignette. I hope that you'll enjoy this learning experience. See you later.